The NFL regular season is wrapping up, but there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is so easy to use, and there are so many different ways to bet, like live same-game parlays. Find bets in the new Explore tab. Make a parlay in the Parlay Hub, the best way to find popular parlays, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/247 and make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Must be 21 plus and present in Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, permitted parishes only, Massachusetts, Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, or Wyoming. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. First online real money wager only. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG in Colorado, Iowa, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT-STEP to 53342 in Arizona, 1-888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut, 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana, 1-800-522-4700, or visit ksgamblinghelp.com in Kansas, 1-877-770-STOP in Louisiana. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia, or call 1-800-522-4700 in Wyoming. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York, or visit oasas.ny.gov/gambling. Standard text messaging rates apply. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Utah, and other states where prohibited.
Welcome in here to the 10 of 12 podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gilbert. Today here on the show, we are talking with Ryan Black from the Manhattan Mercury, who recently had an interview with K-State AD Gene Taylor about the future of Bruce Weber at Kansas State. Basically, if you didn't read the article, essentially Weber will be back next season, according to Taylor, unless something off the court happens that might jeopardize that. But as of now, it looks like Weber will be back. We've got Ryan Black joining me here to talk about this situation. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at 10 of 12 podcast. I'd appreciate that very much. You can stay up to date with everything going on around the Big 12. But without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in Ryan Black here. Ryan, how's it going today?
Ryan, it's going great. Been a pretty hectic 48 hours or so for me, and I mean, it's always nice to be on a podcast with someone who has such a wonderful first name.
You got a great name as well, my guy.
Thank you.
Before we get into things here, I just want to know, how is it watching a basketball game actually like on the court? I want to know, because when I'm up in the rafters, I can't even tell who's got the ball, man.
Well, I think you certainly, with any sport, but I think probably football, I would say, basketball would be the number one for this, is you really get an appreciation for how fast these guys move and how incredibly athletic they are. That's what I think I've always enjoyed about the way K-State's done their media setup is that they put you on the floor.
Yeah.
When I covered basketball at Auburn and at the University of Georgia, they have you up, kind of in the crowd, like above like the tunnel where the players run in and out, which, I mean, it's fine, but I'm thinking it's just not the same as being right on the floor. So it's I'm very appreciative that K-State is like that. And Ryan, I don't know if you've ever been to Oklahoma State, but they put all their reporters up in the rafters too. I mean, you're a mile away from the court there at Gallagher-Iba Arena.
Yeah, for those who don't know, we got stuck. Everyone besides Ryan and Kellis got stuck up at the very top now with some new COVID restrictions, which doesn't make much sense since the vaccines are coming out. But whatever, that's another story. Let's set the stage here for those who don't know, who have been maybe living under a rock.
Ryan, one day when you get Kellis and I our clout, you get to, you'll get the courtside seat again.
Are you that old, man?
How old do you think I am, Ryan? Do you know
I don't know. I'd have to guess 30. Is that good?
I'm just north of 30. I turned 31 back in October. So.
Gotcha. I was pretty dang close, man.
Yeah. Well, hey, if I was clean shaven, man, I could pass for 25 or so. I just, being under a mask almost every waking hour now, I, obviously have not maybe cared as much about being clean shaven. But I'm probably gonna do it tonight. And I'm gonna look like a brand new man tomorrow in Lawrence when I'm over there for the game.
You got accepted to Lawrence, huh?
Well, yes, no, and yes, you can take one guess who the other K-State beat writer who got accepted for was.
Yep. Set me up perfectly for that one. Yeah.
I did get accepted for it, but I mean, I do know that, hey, unlike, KU usually does give it to where there's a select number of people on the floor, but because of COVID stuff, they have it in their media policy this year that all the writers are going to be up, way away from the court. So, if another brawl breaks out, there won't be any reporters who will be down there to be in the way.
No more Riley Gates videos to go viral, huh?
No. And hey, Ryan, it's funny you bring that up. I don't know if Riley gets enough credit for being so incredibly poised when that happened. Yeah. Because there's this photo that people give me such grief about where literally it's like taken right at the time that Love and McCormick are going at it. And I've got this O face because I just cannot believe what I'm watching. And Riley's sitting there just filming, like he's in the middle of a tornado and doesn't care.
Yeah, just kind of the instant.
He deserved all the views he got for that video, which I think didn't it end at like 20 million after ESPN picked it up?
Yeah. That's crazy.
So good for him.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, being a journalist, just taking your phone out when something transpires like that.
Yeah. No, I got it out finally, but Riley got it from start to finish. So good for him.
Yeah. I don't think we're going to be previewing tomorrow's matchup too much here on the show. What we will be doing is talking about K-State head coach Bruce Weber, what's going on with him. We'll start it off with this, Ryan, the interview that you had with K-State AD Gene Taylor. Obviously kind of the takeaway from that was that Bruce Weber will be back barring any, off the court issues that may happen. What else was that conversation like, and what was the vibe with that?
Ryan, I would tell you that Gene Taylor is the best AD who I've ever been able to work with in terms of he speaks his mind. He speaks with candor, and that's just something that in today's college athletics, with it being this, $100 million businesses, and you're running this giant corporation, it's just so easy to be a businessman and to give these canned quotes and to give stuff like that are these wishy-washy non-answers. Gene Taylor has never done that for anything, whether it was asking about the end of the Bill Snyder era, whether it was asking him, before Chris Kleiman's first game, and I wrote a big column about him, Gene, how did you feel about the fact that when you hired Chris Kleiman, there were people who literally said you had preordained Kleiman as your guy the moment you got to K-State, and you didn't even the coaching search that you went through was a sham, that you literally were always going to hire Kleiman. Does that bother you that people are questioning your credibility? And he's like, yeah, Ryan, I'd be lying. I'm almost quoting him more for Ryan. I'd be lying if I told you that kind of stuff doesn't get to you because you don't like people taking shots at your reputation. But he's like, after talking to my family and talking to my other friends, they're like, Gene, you did what you felt like was best for the athletics program and football program when you hired him. And I'm just saying, you can go down the line. Anytime I've ever talked to Gene Taylor, there has never been a time that he has ever avoided a question. Ever. Which, man, talk about a breath of fresh air. Because there's just so many people out there nowadays that they do not want to speak with any honesty, and they're going to hide behind these just made up PR statements that everything is perfect and the sky isn't falling. Even when objects are falling on your head, everything's fine. Nothing to see here. Gene Taylor, like I said, and I'm not saying it doesn't maybe get him in hot water, not necessarily again actually losing his job, but just the fact that I'm sure there are times that maybe people in the athletics department just wish that he's like, oh, Gene, I know you said the truth, but sometimes the truth isn't what you need to say to the local media members. And so like I said, it was a great vibe. He's not the type that's going to shy away from a question. He's not going to say, Ryan, you shouldn't have asked that, or Ryan, I'm not going to answer that. He just is going to give you a straightforward answer, and that's what he did with all my questions.
So Kellis Robinette, speak of the devil here, came out with a story pretty shortly after yours, And, the content was a little bit different. Gene Taylor was kind of talking about, hey, after this season, we'll just see what happens. So the answer was a little different. Do you think that maybe Gene was trying to get a feel of the public's reaction to saying that Bruce Weber would be back next year, or maybe even just to, get his phone lines a little less busy and his emails a little less, crowded as well? Why do you think that he kind of had changed his answer a little bit with Kellis?
Ryan, there's something I would like to say, but it's something that I feel like would come across the wrong way. So I won't. I mean, I'm going to answer it, but there's just something I have to kind of hold back that I just don't feel like I can answer completely truthfully, just for the sake of being diplomatic about. Then this has nothing to do. I mean, Kellis and I are friends. He's a phenomenal reporter. So this has nothing to do with Kellis. This is something a little bit different, completely. But yeah, I would just say that I do think, to your point, Ryan, that part of why Gene said what he said in Kellis's article later that posted after mine was that, yes, I do think it got to him, whether he was checking Twitter or other people were telling him about, hey, Gene, have you seen the reaction to that article that Ryan wrote where he quoted you? I think that when Kellis reached out to him, he certainly did want to try to calm the waters, to borrow a Bill Snyder phrase from his return, a little more. And so he kind of somewhat walked back what he said to me. But you know what? I've seen people, Ryan, I'm not going to name names because, they're just people on Twitter who are fans or whoever else they may be, who've said, well, no, he walked it back completely. No, he didn't. He didn't at all walk it back completely because what he did? People want to point to, he said, oh, well, I'm going to evaluate it at the end of the season. He said that in my article. Go back and look at his quotes. So he didn't at all walk it back or say something completely different. Yeah. He just didn't go as far as saying he's going to be back. But the fact that Ryan, some people I've seen have said, well, him saying that he's going to evaluate it at the end of the season now is different than what he told Ryan. No, that is what he told me. He just told me more. So no, I don't at all agree with this segment of people who've read both articles and said, oh, well, he just walked it back. No, he just didn't go quite as far, but he didn't completely change like his real, thoughts on the situation, in my opinion. Like I said, I guess gotcha. we can look at the same thing, Ryan, and get two completely different, opinions on it. But like I said, I don't at all feel like he walked it back.
You were pretty strict.
I'm just saying, he just only did a slight bit, not that gotcha. He completely rebuked what I said. Yeah, he didn't say, Kellis, what I told another member of the K-State beat earlier is completely wrong. He didn't say that at all. Yeah,
I gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, you had talked about how, straightforward Gene Taylor is, and I'm not trying to – I agree with you. He is pretty upfront with most things. Do you think that there's any skepticism at this point that Weber doesn't return?
In his mind, who am I kind of answering for, Ryan? Like, skepticism from who?
Good question. Fans, yeah, I guess fans and Gene Taylor. Let me rephrase that a little bit here. Just, do you think he was really being truthful with you? Because we've seen that, like at Texas with Tom Herman, they said, oh, things are fine with him. He'll be back next year. We saw what happened with that. So do you think that 100% it is going to be Bruce Weber next season?
I understand your question. You're saying, do I really believe him when he said the intent is for Bruce Weber to be the head coach next season?
Yeah.
I definitely think that when he told me that at the time, Saturday night, when we were on the phone, I 100% believe that he believed that because Ryan, we're really getting down into like the brass tacks of this, but I guess the people who listen to this, they want to know, I guess, every single utterance that Gene Taylor said in this interview. Here's the thing. When I asked him that point blank and I even put it on Twitter, my exact the way I phrased that question, and I'll read it here for just the sake of for people who maybe haven't seen my tweet, is I asked him, this is my last question of the interview, what is your confidence level of Bruce Weber being the head coach next season? That's when he replied, that's our intention. And here's the thing about that, Ryan. I think if he was at all trying to, push me the wrong way or something like that, like he didn't really believe what he was saying, he would have taken a little bit of time. Like there would have been a pause, right? Because you're trying to formulate what you want to say, right? Because you want to make sure you say the right thing, right? Because you don't want to say something that's going to potentially cause an uproar either way with the fan base. He didn't miss a beat answering. He said, that's our intention. So like, Ryan, it's like you asking me right now, like, Ryan, what's your name? My name's Ryan. Like I didn't have to think about it. He didn't have to, there was no pause. There was no at all lingering kind of wait for him to answer that question. So that's why I think, Ryan, if you were trying to lie to me or any reporter, right? Like it would maybe take you a little longer to answer because you're going to be extra careful about, hey, I know I'm lying here. So I want to make sure I answer it as, basically I don't sound like I'm lying, so you're lying without trying to sound like it. I don't at all believe that. I definitely feel like when he said what he said, I think, yeah, he's like, Bruce is going to be back next year. I don't think there was any hint of doubt at all about it. So, I mean, that's what I would tell you about that Ryan.
How long is the lease? Do you think that it's until Nigel Pack and Davion Bradford leave? I mean, is that how, invested Gene Taylor is in Bruce Weber?
The leash, I mean, again, I'm under the impression, that I'm working under this impression as we talk, that there's nothing that could happen on the court that will get Bruce Weber fired. Now, again, that being said, Ryan, I mean, I guess the one situation I could see is if they lose out and every game they get beat by 30 points, because then you're like, well, man, has the team just quit? But I think, Ryan, that I just think that the leash is pretty long. I really do. I mean, and I know that's not well. Okay, let me backtrack on that a little bit. I mean, it's obviously not as long as it was in the moments after they won the 2019. Shared a piece of the 2019 Big 12 regular season championship with Texas Tech. But I would just tell you, Ryan, that I think people, and I know it maybe for some people, it sounds like you're being overly defensive of Weber, but it's like, okay, last season was terrible, for sure. They set a single season record for losses. They finished last in the Big 12. This year is going very badly. But you know what, Ryan? Can you name me like the last coach who won two conference championships with K-State before Weber?
Nope.
Well, I mean, there you go. So it's been a long time. And my point is, so it's not, I mean, and I'm not trying to, Ryan, tell the K-State fan base anything about like, don't have high expectations for your program, because you should. You should have high expectations, because this program has a lot of history. 4 Final Fours. And I wrote in my article, I mean, there are only, 21 schools nationally that have more than that, and only 3 of them are in the Big 12. I mean, 4 Final Fours is a lot, and I know the last one was a very long time ago, but K-State has had some great players and great coaches over the years. That being said, it's not like before Bruce Weber got here, conference championships were just growing on trees. And so I think because of that, because of the Elite Eight run, and because of how many newcomers they've got, I just think that, again, outside of just something really bizarre happening, I really – if you ask me, Ryan, to put down money on it, I think Bruce Weber will be back next season. That's just the way I feel about it right now. But, hey, if I'm wrong, I'll be the first one to admit it. If he gets let go after the Big 12 tournament, I'll be the first one to say, well, I was wrong. But I just feel very certain that, again, the other thing is, Ryan, with the coronavirus pandemic stuff, and you maybe heard the quote from Bruce last week that Jermaine Henderson, his assistant, brought up, since they started practicing for this season, there's only been 7 days they've had their whole team together.
Yeah.
Between either injuries or, quarantining stuff. And Ryan, no team, very few teams in the country, if any, needed this practice time more than K-State. You had 1 senior coming back. You have 8 players on this roster who didn't play a game for K-State last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I mean, they need time to gel, don't they? And so my opinion is, Ryan, I don't think there's any coach in the country who would have this team, 500 in Big 12 right now. And, you're free to disagree with that. But I just think you put another coach in the same circumstances as what K-State's dealing with right now, I don't think that they're going to be appreciably better.
One can argue that it's Weber's fault for, being in that situation where you are so young, and you're right. That's on him. But I agree with you. You bring up some really good points. Bruce Weber's the only coach, since he came to Manhattan to win multiple Big 12 titles who's not named Bill Self. So my 2 cents, if there was a time to fire Bruce, it would have been last year, right? You got Nigel Pack and Davion Bradford, your best ever recruiting class according to 24/7 Sports at Kansas State. So this, Gene Taylor's all in my mind. This was the plan. You knew it was going to be bad. Obviously, the pandemic isn't an excuse, but at the same time, you look at the young teams around the country, Kentucky struggling, Duke, Kansas. All these teams, it's affecting everyone, and Kansas State's definitely, suffering from that.
And Ryan, think about it like this. Like some people say, well, it hasn't affected the coronavirus stuff, hadn't affected Gonzaga, hadn't affected Baylor. Well, hey, let's think about this, Ryan. Look at how upperclassmen laden those teams are.
Yeah.
K-State had one senior. Like, come on. It's just like, Ryan, I don't understand. Believe me, I do understand the frustration because, no one wants to see, if you're a K-State fan, wants to see your team struggle like they did last year. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to see the team struggling again this year. And you certainly don't want to see a performance like last week against Baylor, where you set a record that, had stood since 1934. But gosh, I just feel like, again, this is just a crazy, crazy, crazy year. And hey, Ryan, I would be the first one, maybe your boss, Fitz, or someone else would be the first one, but I would be right there with them. I would be second or third in line, I guess. Like, if this team was senior laden, and like this team had Barry Brown and Cam Stokes and Dean Wade, and they were struggling like this, you have to fire him, because like there's no way you can defend a senior laden team with that kind of talent playing at this manner. But when you've got 8 newcomers, so many true freshmen, 1 senior, guys, and here's the other thing. K-State was expected to be really bad this year. There's a reason they were picked so low in the preseason Big 12 poll. Oh my gosh, we're shocked they're doing exactly what they were predicted to do. Knock me over with a feather. Come on.
Yeah. You look at Baylor, the average age of their starting lineup is older than the Chicago Bulls, an NBA team. So that tells you right there that experience. Baylor's a good team no matter what. Don't get me wrong on that, but that tells you how much the experience matters in a season like this. So I totally get it. It's on Bruce.
And Ryan, so there's an example. So like if Scott Drew was struggling with that roster, like, I would say, well, then maybe he should be fired because there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
But like, I'm just saying, I just don't think anybody with a similar roster of what K-State's dealing with right now would be doing that much better. That's all.
Right on, man. We'll take a quick break here on the 10 of 12 podcast. Be right back for the second half as Ryan Black from the Manhattan Mercury talks about Bruce Weber at Kansas State.
Getting the crew together isn't as easy as it used to be. We get it. Life comes at you fast. But trust us, your pals are desperate for a good hang. And when they hear you stock the party with drinks from Drizzly, they'll be banging down your door. Let Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery, take care of the supplies. All you need is an excuse. It doesn't even have to be a good one. It's your dog's birthday. The loquats are finally ripe. Whatever. With Drizzly, you can compare prices on a massive selection of beer, wine, and spirits and get them delivered straight to your door. Which means you can entice the crew to leave their houses without ever leaving yours. Whatever the occasion, download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com today. Must be 21 plus, not available in all locations.
Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Welcome back in here to the 10 of 12 podcast. I am your host, Ryan Gilbert. Ryan Black from the Manhattan Mercury is joining us as we continue to talk about K-State head coach Bruce Weber. Let's pick up here and talk about the moolah, the money, the donors here. What is the vibe here? Do the donors kind of support Bruce? Do they not like Bruce? How much does that impact the decision? For Gene Taylor, obviously you've got your Ices, your Veneers, those people, but overall, does this have much of an influence on Gene Taylor's decision?
Yeah, Ryan, I thought honestly, and I've told people this who've asked me, obviously the thing's going to gather the headlines from the story I wrote is that Taylor saying that he backs Bruce and that he expects to that he expects Weber to be the head coach come, next year. But I really thought the most interesting and insightful things that Taylor was willing to tell me was about the donors, the people who really, hold a lot of sway on these things. If you kind of tell a athletics department, if you're a big enough donor that like, hey, I'm not going to support certain things anymore if things don't change, that you get the ear of people like Gene Taylor and other people in his department who, hey, they need that money to keep flowing in to keep, working on these facility projects and things like that. And so I just thought it was really insightful. And again, not surprising though, Ryan, going back to the fact that Gene is so candid. He was straight up saying, yeah, there's some boosters who straight up said, yeah, we don't support Bruce. Just straight up. Didn't say to me, Ryan, you expect the AD to say, oh, there's certainly people who have different opinions, but we have really good donors, really good boosters, people who really love the program. You don't expect them to say straight up, yeah, there are some donors who just said they're not fans of Bruce. It's like, man, like, geez, Gene, it's like, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
And I think, though, from there, Ryan, the other interesting thing, and this was something that Gene also told me in the weeks after Bill Snyder's retirement and they were looking for Snyder's replacement, he told me at that time, Ryan, we have great donors, and these people also are not people who are these people who try to be the Wizard of Oz, man behind the curtain, the people who say, hey, you better hire this guy, or, I'm not going to give you any more money.
Mm-hmm.
He just basically says that, the boosters will give their say, but what they'll do is they'll continue giving the athletics department money and trusting that Gene Taylor and University President Richard Myers will make the right decision for the athletics department. And, how important is that, Ryan? You talk about the donors and the boosters for this. The only way Bruce Weber is going to be gone, without being fired for cause for some reason, be it NCAA violations or some other crazy character, clause of some sort, is if these boosters, these donors, pony up the money to get him out of here. That's the only way it's going to happen, because again, Ron, this athletics department has lost millions and millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, like every other school around the country, because of the fact they couldn't fill up the stadium. Bill Snyder Family Stadium. They can't fill up Bramlage.
Yeah.
We'll see how many baseball seats are available when baseball season gets here. So they're not flush with cash compared to what they usually would be.
Let me ask you.
Hey,
go ahead.
So Ryan, put it this way: the people who are the big enough boosters who want Bruce gone, they got to put their money where their mouth is. Pony up. That's what will get Bruce out of here. If you want it bad enough, you got to pay to do it.
Let me ask you a so to speak, $1 million question here.
Yeah.
Do you think that if it wasn't, going down $1 million, would that really have much of, kind of an impact on Gene Taylor's decision for the buyout?
So you're asking me, do I think like if the buyout stayed at $2 million, would that be what keeps them versus it dropping to $1 million?
Let's just say that this was Weber's last year and money wasn't really an issue at all, I guess.
Well, Ryan, I would say in normal times, $2 million, $1 million. That's chump change. That's not that much money.
Yeah.
Right now, with again the money being so tight everywhere, and you always hear that phrase about tightening belts around the country with these budgets. $1 million extra dollars. Yeah, that's something that might potentially make a difference. Now, Ryan, the other thing about this is you talk about when this buyout drops. Well, it drops, May 1st. That's kind of late to be firing a coach when you really think about it. It does happen for sure, but that's usually because the coach, has been fired because of some NCAA violation, not because they literally waited a month after the national title game to say, oh, you know what, I think we've decided this is now not the right person for the program. But it'll be interesting. I'll put it this way, Ryan, that April 30th meeting between Bruce Weber and Gene Taylor now will be circled on a lot of people's calendars. I think that K-State ought to live stream it and sell it as a pay-per-view. They won't do it, but they can give me a cut of the profits, I guess, because I'm the one who came up with the idea.
Exactly. There, it's a win-win, right?
Ryan, how many people would watch that?
Yeah.
I mean, it would be riveting television.
I prefer that over the boxing or the MMA, whatever the hell that is. So,
well, especially Ryan, if you could get someone, just like. Because, I've already seen you're good with impressions. Are you good with a Bruce impression? Can you do his voice?
Oh, well, Ryan, you don't want to hear me. I tell you all the time. I mean, Pearson McAtee, great off-the-court player, Ryan. Good question.
Well, I don't know. I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Oh, you got to switch topics. You got to switch from here to there and make it hard to, transcribing, so might get harder to reporters, right?
That's what I'm telling you, man. So I'm telling you that when they meet, and hey, Ryan, I guess there's some people who are going to tell you, hey, there's not even going to be an April 30th meeting because you know what? They're going to give Bruce the boot before April 30th. But like I said, Ryan, I just feel like everything right now has to be viewed through the prism of the coronavirus and what it's done to athletics departments and their budgets across the country. If this was any other year in a pre-pandemic time, I would say, heck, yeah, I guess we'll wonder if Bruce is even going to make it to the end of the season because it's 2 years in a row they're flirting with last place in the Big 12. And I guess, Bruce Weber and K-State's thanking God for Iowa State this year. But
yeah,
just the fact that I just don't think – I think too many people, Ryan, are viewing this through the prism of normal times. And that in normal times it would not be a question about whether Weber would be back. I think you have to view it through the fact of, hey, this pandemic has changed things for a lot of schools. And hey, look at what Taylor said in the article to me about, like, he was shocked that Texas and Auburn did what they did.
Yeah.
But again, Ryan, talk about two schools with boosters who want to have their say and stuff.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to get too many schools that have more hands in the pot. Especially Texas. Good Lord. I mean, they've got all of these guys trying to elbow their way in to be the top dog in the yard when it comes to being the most influential booster. And there's a reason people would tell you that Mac Brown was the last great coach that Texas had is because he knew how to smooth and just coddle all those egos that are bigger than a Texas fried steak, they're chicken fried steak. It's because, and then at Auburn, they also have a reputation for boosters who really want to have a hand in everything that goes on with their program. And so I'm saying if there are two programs that are going to fire coaches in a pandemic, you would put Auburn and Texas in the top 5, and that's what happened. But you know what, Ryan? K-State's not either of those schools. And I know some people are going to listen to this and say, well, that's the problem. K-State's not willing to pull the trigger and be a real Power 5 school. Well, you know what? Like, it's just they're different. They're different. They are different. Auburn's in the SEC with all that SEC network money that dwarfs almost every other, conference deal other than the Big Ten. And then Texas is Texas, which literally has its own network.
Mm-hmm.
Literally its own TV network. So yes, I mean they are all 3 Power 5 schools, but K-State's in a different position than Auburn or Texas for just obvious reasons. But I'm not saying that to have K-State fans say, Ryan, you're trying to belittle us, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying I'm just being honest that the financial situations at SEC schools, just because of the strength of that conference and their TV deals, is different, as well as Texas kind of being its own entity, almost separate from the Big 12, but the fact it's got its own network. It's just completely different situations.
Let's talk about this morning. Bruce Weber had a press conference with the media here, and my own boss, Tim Fitzgerald, asked Coach Weber something along the lines of your interview with AD Gene Taylor, and just kind of what his thoughts and reaction was. And Bruce dodged the question and said, "Oh, I haven't even heard there was that article."
I don't know if they talked. I don't know if he talked.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I don't even know where to go with this. What do you think of his answer? I mean, that's kind of unacceptable in my mind. Do you agree?
Ryan. When I was on that call this morning and I heard Bruce Weber say that, I said, that is the only thing he could have said that would have been worse is if he had said, You know what, Fitz? I don't even know why Gene would be asked that, because the program's never been stronger. We're in a great place right now. That's the only thing he could have said that would have been worse. Because, and Ryan, I do hope some of the things I'm saying on this podcast do not put me in difficult positions with people going forward, but I'm just trying to be honest answering questions. Is I just would have, if I was, someone very close to Bruce, and and I know all of the stuff that was out there yesterday, and you're about to meet the media the next day, and it's going to be asked at some point. What I would tell him is say, this is my advice, as your PR handler. Bruce, say that, yes, I'm aware that Gene fielded questions about my job security. I understand why. There's any person with two eyes can understand why why he would be asked about it. We finished last in the Big 12 last year. We're next to last in the Big 12 this year, right now. And on top of that, we just literally had the worst loss in the history of the program by margin of defeat. And so all of those things, I understand it because I'm the head coach at a Power 5 university, and that comes with the territory. Those kind of questions are going to be asked when you're in a high profile position and you make the kind of money that I'm making. But so I and then I would say to him also that he needs to then turn it in the direction of, and the questions are fair. The questions are fair, because anytime that you struggle to the extent that we've struggled as a program, and this is me speaking in Bruce Weber voice without trying to pull off an accent. So I'm speaking as Bruce here, it is that, as a program, we're underachieving, and, it's unacceptable, and it's happened on my watch. But what I would ask people, what I would ask the K-State fan base is just to stick with me and stick with our players, because, hey, we're not purposely trying to lose. We're working hard as every day at practice. We're going out there every day trying to win games. And all I ask is that you guys give me patience until the end of the year. And we're going to give our best effort every single time on the floor. And that's all we can ask for. And if nothing else, we have had success here in my tenure. We've won Big 12 championships. We've been to an Elite Eight. We've sent guys to the NBA with Dean Wade and Barry Brown. Just if we just give this group time to mature, time to gel, I think that we have a very bright future here at K-State.
You bring up a good point, man.
What I would say.
Yeah.
That's what I would say if I'd been Bruce this morning. Along those lines. I'm not saying he would use the word, but paraphrasing. Like I said, the main thing is acknowledging that you understand why the questions were asked, why the questions were asked of Gene about his job. And then, so it's like a 3-step thing, a 3-pronged answer, Ryan, is what he should have done. So again, First off, acknowledging it, because there's a reason your boss is being asked about it. Secondly, then say, I understand why, because, hey, you're maybe going to be finishing in last place in the Big 12 in back-to-back years. And then thirdly, then turn it to a positive thing by saying, please stick with me. Please support these kids. Please support the program. We're going to do everything we can to turn it around and get back to competing for the Big 12 championship like we've done as recently as 2 years ago. That's what he should have done. Doing what he did, Ryan, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because it's just like, because it looks bad. The optics of it are terrible because you just have to acknowledge it, because Ryan, there's no way that he didn't hear either from Gene himself, one of his assistants, one of his friends. There's no way he had no clue that Gene, because Ryan, the other thing, there were 2 different articles from 2 different beat writers. Heck, Ryan, I would go as far to say it's more likely he saw Kellis's article, because Kellis has a bigger following than I do, and he also works for the 2 biggest outlets on our beat, which is the combined KC Star and Wichita Eagle. The Mercury is the little engine that could, and we punch above our weight and we get our licks in. We are not the behemoth that is the KC Star and the Wichita Eagle. So I'm saying it's probably more likely he saw what Kellis was told instead of me, which is fine. I don't begrudge him for that. But my thing is to say that you don't even know that there are articles out there. I mean, it's mind-boggling that to me that he didn't come with a better prepared answer. Because right, I mean, Ryan, if I was in his shoes, I just know when I started seeing probably all the text or even the calls I got yesterday about, hey, did you see what Gene said? Or even if Gene called him directly, why would you not be prepared for that question and come with a better answer than that? So it just, I mean, Ryan, I think Bruce Weber is a very good coach. I don't think that you luck into doing what he's done here at K-State with the 2 championships and the Elite 8 run. And year after year, they usually had been one of the best defensive teams in college basketball. That's kind of fallen off the last 2 years a bit, but I just think he's a very, very, very good coach. I just, I think that after the guys who left in 2019, kind of the bottom fell out a bit with last year's team because of the fact that they didn't really have a go-to scorer. Xavier Sneed was a very good player, very athletic player, very good defender, but he was very streaky as a scorer.
Mm-hmm.
McCall Meween, couldn't hold on to the ball. If you told him he had to save his life.
Yeah.
And then,
literally.
Obviously everyone knows all of the issues with Cardi Jada, who, in the interest of full disclosure, I liked a lot in terms of he and I talked about anime. He's a big anime fan, and now he's at Virginia Tech with former K-State assistant Chester Frazier. But I just think, things started going downhill last year, obviously, and they did. And then, of course, you just had that absolute, Moses-like exodus of transfers after last season. Probably the most surprising to me, honestly, was David Sloan.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that, again, that things just maybe, that they unraveled very quickly after that Big 12 championship. But I mean, hey, I've seen really, really, really good things from the freshman class and from some of these newcomers. I mean, Nigel Pack is going to be phenomenal here. Stelton Miguel has an amazingly quick first step. He needs to work on his jump shot. But I mean, to me, he should put the ball on the floor every time and go to the rim because there's very few defenders who can stay in front of him. Davion Bradford's already the best big man since I've been here, best true big man.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, Dean was more of your, the stretch, the stretch 4 kind of things that you see teams liking to employ nowadays. But in terms of a true big man, Bradford's already the best since I've been here since the fall of 2017. Suri Lewis, some of those guys, that they need a little more seasoning. Carlton Lingard, he's done a couple of good things. He's a much better shooter than you probably would expect for his size. Casey Iziegu, he's very physical. He seems to be a good leader already on this team. So, I mean, I just think, just my opinion, Ryan, gosh, what are you going to do if you do fire Bruce? And then so many of these guys who maybe are loyal to him end up transferring because they're like, well, hey, whoever they bring in next, this guy didn't recruit me. And I mean, I guess, Ryan, what people potentially need to look at, I'm just throwing it out there. And some people will say, okay, because at the end of the day, they want Bruce gone no matter what. And they'll take whatever collateral damage goes along with it. But you have to ask yourself, is it worth getting rid of Bruce if they then also lose Nigel Pack and maybe Davion Bradford and maybe is it worth it? I want to know what your answer is, Ryan, because I mean, you're someone who's been around this program. What would you if that was the answer? Is okay, you get rid of Bruce, but then the most promising freshmen also go out the door. Is that worth it?
No. I think that if Bruce does stay and it's guaranteed that Pack and Bradford stay till they're seniors, then definitely. But yeah. I do have my skepticisms there because I think Bruce's Achilles heel is kind of retaining and maintaining his locker room and his players to stay for 4 years at Kansas State.
That's fair. I mean, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. I mean, and like I said, the numbers back that up, like you said about the being able to retain certain guys. Although I will say, a few of the guys who transferred last year, after the end of last season, I mean, come on. I mean, they were Big 12 basketball scholarship players in name only. I mean, Nigel Shad can never stay healthy.
Yep.
James Love, the most fight he ever showed in his life was that brawl last year. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, good for them that they got scholarships elsewhere and they're playing, but come on. I mean, it's not like, you chalk that up and say, oh my gosh, the K-State didn't keep Nigel Shad and James Love around. The program's in shambles. I mean, come on.
Maldo Salah.
There's a name I've not heard in a while.
Yeah.
Heck, even the artist formerly known as Sean Neil Williams. He dropped the Neil, and then it was just Sean Williams, and then he dropped out of school and left the program.
He dropped everything, huh?
So it's just. And now I do think he's someone who could have had some potential for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he showed some flashes as a freshman, but I don't know. I feel like I do think part of his problem specifically, and again, I'm speculating here. I don't have like this on the record from some source or something. I think that he really wanted the ball in his hands a lot more than he got it, and I think that Cardi was very ball dominant last year when he was on the floor, and so Williams kind of saw the writing on the wall, and then also it didn't help that he, maybe had some off court issues that that Weber kind of alluded to.
Yeah.
Like you're right though, Ryan. I mean, certainly the numbers, whether it's like the guys we've already mentioned, or even before I got here, the Marcus Foster stuff, that they've had problems keeping certain guys around for sure.
Yeah, it's just crazy with Cartier Jada, man. When he came as a freshman, just seemed like such a great, loving, laughing kid. And not to say he's a bad kid now, but, I mean, things just went south in a hurry.
Yeah, I certainly did not see it coming last year with him. I mean, because I just don't ever in the 2 seasons before that I've been here and covered him, I don't ever remember him being viewed as any kind of malcontent. But then last year, Ryan, and I think this is where we really underestimate this a lot. It's that whole concept of, hey, it's easy to be the guy who, you're maybe like, in those 2 previous years, Ryan, the team looked to Barry Brown and to Dean Wade and to Cam Stokes.
Yeah.
Then maybe, okay, if all 3 of them are having an off night, okay, maybe Cardi needs to step up, or Mike McGurl, or someone else comes to the rescue, or obviously Xavier. But it's a completely different animal last season when they're asking Cardi to go from being maybe the 5th option on offense to being the number 2 guy or number 1 with Xavier. And I mean, the facts bear it out that he did not respond well to being asked to take on a larger role in the offense and also a larger role as a team leader. And I guess I'll be honest, I did not see that coming because I think it's what you're alluding to here. He always answered questions very insightfully and never seemed to shy away from anything. He seemed like he was like energetic, fun, funny, laughing,
genuine,
just the kind of guy it seems like teammates would want to be around. But I just do think that he, like I said, he did not respond well to the increased responsibilities expected of him. And of course, we remember the Fran Fraschilla thing where he made that big criticism about that. Hey, I think this is a kid whose mind is focused on playing in the pros when really right now he'll be lucky to play in Europe and he's nowhere close to the NBA. And, whether you agreed with that assessment or not, it's just, it showed that people who don't cover the team every day had noticed certain bad habits with Jada. So, like I said, I miss talking with him about anime though. So
it's all about the anime, huh?
Yeah, no, he's a big anime guy, big Naruto fan. That was his go-to.
I wish I could, talk more about that, but I don't know what that is. So,
well, I'm getting caught up on Attack on Titan. I didn't know the 4th season had come out, and I watched the first 2 episodes this morning, and so, I'll probably maybe watch the next 2 tonight after I get done with a couple more stories. Once we wrap up this pod.
Last thing here to segue, we were talking about Pac.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, we're maybe reading between the lines a little bit here, but on Twitter,
that's what we're supposed to do, right?
Exactly.
On these kind of things.
We're journalists, exactly. On Twitter, he liked your tweet. Or I guess was it a retweet or tweet?
He liked the original tweet, like the actual first tweet that I sent out yesterday with the Gene Taylor Bruce Weber story.
Yeah. So do you think that if Weber goes, they all go?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I'd say they all go for certain, but I mean, I just do think it's interesting, and again, Ryan, like we literally are speculating here, because again, that's what I even put in because I sent out a tweet where I took a screenshot of the fact that Pac liked my tweet. And I just said, maybe he just wanted to read the story, and save it for later. maybe he liked that Gene Taylor was showing a vote of confidence in Weber.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, at the end of the day, he did like the tweet. And so from there, it's open to interpretation why he did that. Is it because, again, he just wanted to read my article, which, hey, thank you, Nigel. I appreciate that. That's what you're doing. Get me a click. Clicks are always nice. But hey, if it is, the other thing is it's possible that, hey, he's invested in Bruce Weber because Bruce Weber is who got him here. And let's never discount this, Ryan. And you probably know this because you're the recruiting guy, Go Powercat, and you can probably speak on this some.
Yep.
Weber has talked frequently about, like, people have asked, man, how did you get Pack? He just seems like a guy that maybe, when you've watched him play, you're like, well, man, how did he not end up at KU or Michigan State or Illinois or Indiana? Programs that, while K-State's a very, very good basketball program, all of those programs you would say are, maybe with the exception of Illinois, are a step above. And actually, I would say Illinois is a better job if for no other reason than, one, it doesn't share a state with KU, and two, the recruiting hotbed that's Chicago makes it easier to recruit to.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the reason I'm bringing that up is that Weber repeatedly talked about, like I said, when people were like, how did you get this guy here to K-State? He said, well, it's because that he was small and we were first on him, and he appreciated that we overlooked his lack of size at the beginning. So it strikes me, man, Ryan, I said, man, that kind of was a little too casual.
Man.
Man.
Yeah.
And that Nigel Pack, just in our already limited interviews with him, and again, we haven't got to meet him in person, right? We've done everything via Zoom as we've got to know this kid. He seems like, again, an extremely thoughtful, caring, smart, eloquent kid. And he also strikes me as someone who's very loyal, right? He doesn't seem like, and again, like I said, I know I'm literally speculating from getting to know this kid through Zoom, but I get the sense that if Weber gets let go, he'll follow him, because I think you can never downplay loyalty. And I think he's like, this is the staff who showed the faith in me before I was the four-star kid. And, if K-State doesn't want to show the same loyalty to Bruce, there's no reason for me to stay here in Manhattan.
You bring up a really good point, man.
That's me, but that is me completely speaking off the cuff. That's me completely speculating. Bruce might get fired, and then Nigel Pack's here playing for somebody else next season. But yeah. I don't know. I just get the sense that, that he, that he's a loyal kid, and I think that he would take it as a sign of disrespect to the staff that recruited him here to Manhattan out of Indianapolis.
Yeah,
that they didn't stick with him, especially again, given what all we've already talked about, Ryan, about the fact that, hey, this is not a normal season. This is a team working in so many newcomers. There were going to be growing pains. This is what was expected of this team. Again, maybe not quite to this extent, like especially the Baylor loss, or really both Baylor losses, if you want to make that argument. But this team was not expected to be competing for an NCAA tournament. They were basically competing to not finish in last place with Iowa State, and at least I thought at the beginning of the year TCU, who's been better than I thought. But, I just I don't know if I can speak as much on Bradford or Miguel or those guys, but I think Pack specifically seems to have a great debt of a lot of gratitude for this staff for being on him so early before he was a big name prospect.
Yeah, and to go off of that as well, CJ Gunn.
And so, Ron, I want you to speak on that, because again, you cover recruiting daily, and I kind of I fly in when they get a commitment. I don't follow it daily.
Yeah, you led me right to my next point, was CJ Gunn, who's actually committing, or not committing. He's committing on Sunday. I don't know where, but K-State, Indiana are two finalists for CJ, and I've talked to his family and him. And Nigel Pack has been a lifelong friend of theirs. They're both from Indiana, and nothing but great things to say about Nigel. But also, they're family friends. They're a great family. They're great to talk to. It's pretty obvious that Nigel Pack comes from a great family as well. So you're right on with that, and I think that Nigel is certainly the kid that you want in your basketball program. I hope he doesn't turn into a Cartier or something like that. knock on wood, knock on whatever this is made of.
There's no chance Nigel Pack would ever turn out like what happened with Cardi or any of the other previous guys who transferred out of here for maybe behavioral or attitude problems. It's not. It would be the most shocking thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
In terms of just a transfer. The last time I was blindsided by a transfer was, after being the backup, 2 days before John Holcomb III enters the transfer portal. That was a shock to me. That's probably the last time I've been just completely taken aback by a transfer. Because normally, again, you transfer when you literally have not been playing. But he literally had gotten backup quarterback snaps 2 days before he announced he was transferring. So that's I don't see it. I don't see Pack.
I agree.
I don't see him leaving because of attitude problems. That's for sure. I see him leaving because if he feels like the K-State fan base doesn't respect Bruce in the manner that he believes they should. And Ryan, that's what I've tried to do in this podcast with you. And I'm going to be interested to see what feedback I get from people about whether they think I was too easy or too hard on Bruce or too hard on their program. But I think there is something to be said, like I said, Ryan, that as bad as this season and last season were, Bruce has still led them to 2 Big 12 titles and an Elite Eight.
Yep.
Just like Ryan, here's a little stat for you, by the way. And I'm thinking about writing a column on this later this week. And you actually, I think, brought it up, but I'm going to reiterate it. Among the current Big 12 coaches, is Bruce Weber and Bill Self are the only 2 coaches who have more than 1 Big 12 regular season title.
Yeah.
So, it's like, heck. I know. Hey, Ryan, in an ideal world, K-State would be KU. They would be this program that, hey, not only has Bruce won multiple championships, but now year in and year out, there's no fall off. And you lose more than 3 games in conference play or 4 games, and it's like the sky is falling. But, it's hard. It's hard to do what – it's almost impossible to do what KU has done with winning the 14 straight Big 12 titles. It's unprecedented to do that. And so, especially in a Power 5 league, I know maybe Gonzaga is potentially going to break that record one day, but, it's completely different. When it's Gonzaga and St. Mary's and, basically the 8 Sisters of the Poor, and I guess BYU, but, come on. All due respect to Gonzaga and the program that Mark Few has built, and they're one of the top 2 teams in the country this year, but they do not face the daily gauntlet that you have to face in the Big 12 or the Big 10. It's just a fact. It's a fact that, hey, if they were in a Power 5 league, Power 6, because you include the Big East in basketball, they would not have won as many consecutive titles as because they, the ACC, they wouldn't have beat out Virginia one year. Big 10, they wouldn't have beat out Michigan State. Well, Gonzaga is unbelievable in terms of what they've done and what they've built. But I'm saying that, to do what Self has done at KU, to me, is far, far, far more impressive. It's unbelievable that, you lose the guys that he lost year after year after year and was able to keep that streak going. So, the only thing in my lifetime, and I can speak from it because I followed Georgia sports as a kid. The Atlanta Braves won 14 straight NL East division titles, not counting the 1994 strike year, because that one has an asterisk with it. But that's the only thing I've ever seen in sports that rivals what KU did with the Big 12 regular season title winning. And hey, that's something else. If nothing else, Ryan, don't you think? Maybe that bill of that what's the word I'm looking for here? Basically, you would think that Bruce, being one of the people that helped end KU's streak, would give him some leeway. But maybe people would say, no, after last year, that's evaporated. And certainly now it's gone. I don't know where you stand on that.
Yeah, I agree. You're not Kansas. You're not Duke. You're not going to be good every single year. You can't win 1 million straight Big 12 titles. I get it that the lows are pretty low and they're embarrassing and they're frustrating. I totally get that. But at the same time, the Big 12 titles, and people try to write off the Elite Eight run. You still beat Kentucky, which was practically, an all-NBA team that's playing in the league right now. And then, people write off UMBC. They still beat the number one team in America that season, so they're not a terrible team.
Beat them like a drum.
Exactly.
Because I was there for that. That was not like, again, they did not win on a fluky three-pointer.
Yep.
They destroyed that Virginia
team. Start to finish, yeah.
Destroyed them. And, oh, by the way, and I don't think it gets enough mention, Ryan, remember that they went to that Elite Eight with Dean Wade playing 7 total minutes.
Yep, you're right.
7 total minutes. An all Big 12 first-team player. I don't know, Ryan. I don't think even if Dean had been healthy, if everything still goes the same and they still meet Loyola in the Elite Eight, I still don't know if they win that game because they just seem to be as cliche as they had that team of destiny and Sister Jean and all that. I still don't know if they would have won. But the fact that they still made it to the Elite Eight with their best player, or at least one of their 2 best, depending on how you felt about Barry Brown, he played 7 total minutes in 4 games. That's a pretty incredible thing. And you know what, Ryan? I'm also curious about this when I think about it. And I was talking about it with someone who I respect a lot in our industry because he saw my article yesterday and called me up and wanted to talk my ear off about it. Is that how different do you think maybe we'd be thinking of things had Dean Wade not been hurt for the 2019 one? They lost to UC Irvine.
Yeah.
Because on paper, Ryan, my opinion is that they make it to the Sweet 16 because they would have beaten, I think, either Wisconsin or Oregon in the other game. And then, do you know who was in that the number 1 seed in that region?
Who?
UVA. So, if K-State played the game of their lives in that Sweet 16, they maybe could have knocked off Virginia. But I get a sense, Ryan, that would have been the end of the line for that team because I just think that you recall, as good as that team was, they were certainly not an offensive powerhouse. I saw them struggle to put the ball in the hole against Tulsa. They lost to Texas A&M team that was a pathetic squad. They should not have lost that game in College Station. But, I just think that going against that Virginia defense, I think it would have maybe ended up like a 50-41 kind of final score in favor of UVA. And hey, but Ryan, then look at that. That's an Elite Eight and a Sweet 16 back-to-back years. Yeah. I mean, do you think that not maybe would give Bruce more leeway now? Because, I'll be honest, Ryan, I don't hear a lot of people bring up that one and done in the tournament much because I do think so many people realized, Dean Wade was such a major part of that team that it was tough. Because, hey, and the other thing is UC Irvine doesn't get enough credit for how good they were. That team was like 30-4, I believe, heading into the tournament. That was a good team. That was not like some rinky-dink squad from, out of no. That was a good school.
Yeah,
that
they didn't lose since January, when that game was played. So, and plus it was in California, right? It's like a home game for them when we're traveling halfway across the country. So,
well, in a sense, what you got to remember too, though, Ryan, and I remember their head coach kind of laughing about that statement was, they were up in San Jose, which is Northern California. UC Irvine is still way down South Cali, just Southern California.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's kind of like saying that, like, oh, it's a K-State home game playing in St. Louis. Like, okay, maybe you're closer than what UC Irvine would have been, but it's still a long way from Manhattan. So I'm just saying, Ron, I mean, those are the things that I ponder. That like, hey, how different would things be now had Bruce maybe made another run in 2019? We'll never know. And, in the interest of full disclosure, my heart hurts for Dean Wade. The fact that a guy who gave 4 years to this program that I covered his last few seasons, but that he only got to play 7 minutes total, one game in those 2 years. Come on, you have to feel terrible for a kid like that. Yeah, it's awful because, like I said, who knows? Because, and let's be honest, Ryan, he's a phenomenal basketball player. But, like, he's always going to be remembered for K-State. He's probably going to be a sixth man in the NBA at best his whole career. His entire career is going to be remembered for what he did at K-State. Yeah. And you got to think that as he gets older and when his playing career ends, he's going to think back on those 2 NCAA tournaments for the rest of his life and just think, what could we have done if I hadn't been hurt? And how much that must stick with him. How much that'll stick with him. mean, it wasn't his fault. I mean, I was like, right, he didn't try to get hurt. It just happens. Like, man, the fact that a guy who gave that much was a great guy to talk to, like I said, perfect representative of K-State's program, especially being a small town Kansas kid, right? I mean, exactly what you want. No, and again, an under the radar recruit, right? I mean, you could be like, he wasn't like he was came here. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, Dean Wade. Like, I mean, he was a good player, but like, I don't think anyone expected him to be an All Big 12 performer by the All Big 12 first team by the end of his career, right? I mean, so it's just one of those things where, you know, Ryan, those are sometimes things I think about in terms of like how different would Dean Wade be remembered? Not that he's already not remembered as a great player, but if he'd been able to play and have some great games in the NCAA tournament those 2 years, and now how differently would Bruce be viewed if he'd been able to follow up the Elite Eight with maybe a Sweet 16? You know, it's things that you got to wonder, man, because it's just like it's that what if that we're never going to know.
And honestly, Barry Brown might be, the biggest beneficiary of that with the game winner at Kentucky. He was really the leader. During that stretch. So how does he get remembered if Dean Wade was fully healthy in the tournament?
Yeah.
So it's a
good
point,
it's
man.
Just it's fascinating to think about, man. Mike McGurl obviously is remembered as the hero against Creighton.
Yeah.
Marcus Foster, and K-State held Foster to his worst performance in all his entire career at Creighton. So it was just a crazy, it was a crazy run, that one, it's like, K-State will always have that. And I guess, man, what I would just tell K-State fans, and I know I've talked so long here, Ryan. I'm happy to answer anything else. But you get rid of Bruce, you do always have to ask, is the grass going to be green on the other side? Right? With anytime you fire a coach, do you think now the next coach is going to come in and win 3 Big 12 titles? Is he going to go to 2 Elite Eights? Is the next coach finally going to be that man to take them back to the Final Four, somewhere they haven't been since 1964? So Ryan, it's a very, very, very difficult question you've got here in terms of getting rid of someone like Bruce. And again, I know some people are saying, Ryan, you're an idiot, meaning me, saying it's not difficult. He's shown that he's not the right man for this program anymore. I mean it, Ryan, in the sense of, okay, if you feel that way, are you confident that whoever is next is going to be a major upgrade and improve upon what Bruce has done? Because, Ryan, here's the thing, right, is what K-State fans have to think about. Would you prefer to be, more along the Frank Martin line of, maybe, or a coach is roughly, Ryan, like, let me use this example, where you're finishing 4th or 5th in the Big 12 every year, and you're at least making it to the tournament, but you're going out in the first weekend? Is that better than winning 2 Big 12 titles, going to Elite Eight, and then bottoming out for a year or two? What's better, Ryan? It's a question you've got to ask yourself.
I think your bias of Bruce Weber kind of interferes whoever you're asking, but I agree. Yeah, it's a good point to ask.
And Ron, the example I would use, because it's one that's out there, and like they are literally still out to sea and searching for it. Tennessee football, was one of the best programs in the 1990s, right there with Nebraska, right there with Florida State, right there with Florida. And look at them since 2007. They've been through so many coaches. They still believe themselves to be one of the top tier programs in the country, even though records tell you that they're not. But it's because they got rid of Philip Fulmer, who at the time was still a very good coach. But hey, they haven't been the same since. And who knows, maybe if Lane Kiffin had not been one and done there, maybe we wouldn't be having this discussion. But that's what happened. He left after 1 year to go to USC, which obviously, as great a program as Tennessee is, they're not Southern California. They're not Southern California, because Southern California, you get to recruit to Southern California. You get to recruit to Hollywood.
Yeah.
You get to recruit to, hey, there's Snoop Dogg on the sidelines. Hey, there's Will Ferrell on the sidelines. Sorry. In Tennessee, you can say, hey, there's Smokey the dog, which is cool. And you can maybe say, hey, there's Peyton Manning, but, a little bit different than Will Ferrell or Snoop Dogg. So it's just, Ryan, that's what I always try to tell people when they ask me my opinion of, like, should Coach X be fired? Because I'll give you one more example, because, again, it's one that I know a lot about because I covered the University of Georgia when I was in college. Mark Richt left Georgia as the winningest head coach in school history in terms of winning percentage. I don't know if you knew that. Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't.
I did not.
Better than Vince Dooley, who won the national championship in 1980. Better than Wally Butts, who also won a national championship, although that was split. And so there's more, debate over, and that would have been back in 1942 I believe was the year. Now I'm almost positive it was. So anyway, but what happened, Ryan, is that, Richt would win almost 10 games every single year. 10 games year in and year out in the SEC. Very hard to do. Very, very, very hard to do. But usually one of those losses would be to a team that they should not have lost to. And then the other loss would be in like the biggest game of the season. Georgia would get pounded off the face of the earth by Alabama or Florida or whoever the big game is that year. And it got to the point where Georgia fans felt that Richt is a very good coach, but it doesn't seem like he's the guy who's going to get us over the hump to beat Alabama and to be there with, LSU and the other schools. Like basically, these, Ryan, in the SEC, there's Alabama and there's LSU and there's Florida and there's Auburn. In terms of those schools have all won national titles since 2008, I guess would have been the last one for Florida. So, you're talking about the last dozen years. And some of those schools obviously have won multiple titles in that time. Because if you stretch it back farther, obviously LSU has won 3 since 2003. Florida has won, they won 2, 06 and 08 with Urban Meyer. And obviously Alabama's done what Alabama's done. And Georgia is right. Oh, and then Auburn, of course, won the national title in 2010, went undefeated in 04. Some people felt they got screwed out of a national title chance because they finished undefeated, but that was the year there were 3 undefeated teams. Southern Cal obliterated Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl. And so, they were the BCS champions, was USC, but there's people who feel like Auburn should have had a chance. And then the other year in 2013, they made it all the way to the national title game and lost to Florida State and Jameis Winston. And so the thing is, basically Richt had done everything he could do at Georgia other than lead them to a national championship game, much less a national championship like the title. But like my thing is, okay, so you get rid of Richt, which they did, and the winningest coach in school history in terms of winning percentage. Are you really sure the next guy you're going to bring in is going to be better?
Yeah.
I was skeptical because, hey, look at how many of Saban's assistants, Nick Saban's assistants, like they look great when they're with Nick Saban, but then they go take over their own program. It's like, wow, that's a little bit hard to do what Nick Saban does. That's wild, right? It's been hard to replicate what Nick Saban's done. But Kirby Smart has come now the closest to replicating it because they are continually fighting Alabama and Ohio State and Clemson and LSU for the number 1 recruiting class in the country. It's because the state of Georgia is so incredible with football now that they're right there with Texas, Florida, and California in terms of blue chip prospects. That was one other problem I guess I should have mentioned. Toward the end of Rick's tenure, basically it was an open door policy of the state of Georgia. Come in and take our best prospects because Georgia's not going to keep them. So they were going to Auburn. They were going to Alabama. They were going to Florida. They were going to Clemson, obviously. Deshaun Watson, right in Georgia's backyard, by the way. Best high school athlete I've ever covered. Unbelievable how good Deshaun Watson was. Georgia, if they got on him, it was too late because Clemson showed him love from the beginning, and he said, I'm going to Clemson. Goodness gracious. Think about if Deshaun Watson had gone to Georgia. Mark Richt would still be at Georgia right now, I'll put it that way. No doubt in my mind. But, they didn't recruit him. Not hard enough. And so that's the one thing that when Kirby Smart got there, he said, we're going to lock these borders down as much as we can because you're not going to keep every guy in state. That's impossible for a state that size and, just the amount of talent there. But, who's hurt? You know who it's hurt, Ryan? It's hurt Auburn. There's a reason Auburn has struggled recently and they got rid of Gus Malzahn is because they were used to being able to raid Georgia, specifically the western part of that state. Because, Ryan, I'm not sure that you know anything about the state of Georgia geography, but West Georgia, you are closer to Auburn driving there than it is to Athens, which is in northeast Georgia. So you can understand why kids are like, well, why would I not want to go to Auburn when it's a lot closer for my family to drive? It's a lot closer for me to drive home. So it's like Auburn has been hurt the most. And like I said, so now, as of right now, Smart's already won an SEC title, played for the national title, almost won it. Devonta Smith, before he became Devonta Smith, had the game-winning catch in overtime. But, Smart now already has a better winning percentage than Rick did. Now, obviously, again, he hasn't been there as long. But I would say, Ryan, that, now that we've been given the benefit of some time, you got to say Georgia did the right thing. As nice a man as Rick was, and people loved that he wore his Christian faith on his sleeve. And there was never a hint of NCAA issues or anything that Rick ever did that would bring shame upon Georgia's program. But college football is not Sunday school. You don't get judged on how many men you bring to Christ. You get judged on how many national titles you bring to the trophy case.
Mm-hmm.
And Rick did not do that. Kirby Smart has already gotten them a whole heck of a lot closer. And the way they continue recruiting, as long as he doesn't make another screw up like letting Justin Fields leave over Jake Fromm, go figure there.
Yeah.
They're going to win a national championship. They're going to win a national championship under Kirby Smart. I don't know when. Maybe he's going to have to wait for Nick Saban to finally retire, I guess. Who knows? But what I'm saying is, Ryan, that long-winded explanation, which I hope people who listen to this don't tune out because they're like, God, I wish he would shut up, is that is one example of where, hey, they got rid of Ryan, and I don't have the number right in front of me. I believe Rick won like 74% of his games. And again, in the SEC, that's hard.
Yeah.
But like the fact that I think Smart's now won like 78%, 78%, that's one of the few times you would say they somehow got rid of an ultra successful coach and actually got better. But Ryan, that is the exception and not the rule. And that's why so many schools, be it, Tennessee, Nebraska, a lot of these schools that once were these mighty, 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 Michigan, these mighty, mighty, mighty powers in college football, they're trying to find their way back to the top. And it's hard. It's hard. And so I just, that's that long-winded explanation about Mark Richt is why I bring up Bruce Weber is that, my opinion would be, Ryan, and again, everyone's gonna have their own take on this. Well, if you fire Bruce Weber and the next guy doesn't come in here and win 3 Big 12 titles and go to at least 2 Elite Eights and or a Final Four, then why'd you get rid of Bruce?
Here we go again. Start the cycle over. Yeah.
So Ryan, I'm going to end that with you. Is I just want to know would you prefer to have what's happened with Bruce, where you've won the 2 Big 12 titles, Elite Eight, and had now 2 very bad seasons, or would you rather finish 4th or 5th every year, never win a title, and go out in the first round of the NCAA tournament every year?
Yeah, that's something I said a lot on here.
What's the better scenario for you? Well, if you are a K-State fan or donor or supporter, which of those 2 scenarios? Those are the 2 that you got, Ryan. It's not like, okay, on the one hand, I'm saying the other one you win the national title. It's taking what we know about Bruce, and then the other hypothetical behind door number 2 is that you finish 4th or 5th in the Big 12 every year. You're guaranteed to get to the NCAA tournament, but you never win a Big 12 title. You never win a Big 12 tournament title, and you never make it out of the first weekend. What would you rather take?
I see the other side to the argument, but for me, the Big 12 titles and the Elite Eights outweigh however bad this season may have been and how bad the 2014-15 season may have been. So I'm with you.
Ryan, I will end it on this. I will end it on this. I don't think anybody in any sport ever looks back and say, hey, man, I'm sorry. And whether this is the players or this is the fans saying this, they don't ever say, hey, man, you remember that year we finished 4th or 5th in the Big 12? Wasn't that a great year?
You're right.
They say, hey, man, do you remember when we went to the Elite Eight? Hey, man, do you remember when we won the Big 12? And, oh, by the way, we finally ended KU's streak.
Yeah, you're right. Something Frank Martin could never do. I love Frank. Don't get me wrong. I love Frank, but he could never do that.
And so the championships and the Elite Eight, I just feel like, you just grin and bear it right now with what's going on with Weber and say, this man has not forgotten how to coach. Right now is just a difficult time with the pandemic. And I just think if you just give this group time to gel, they're going to be really good. I'm not going to sit here and say that they'll be, that big 3 of Dean, Cam, and Barry. But I think there's a lot of potential here, especially like I said, Pack, great leader, great shooter. Bradford already shows a lot of development for a big man. And like I said, I just think that Miguel, if he can get a consistent jump shot, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Athleticism's there for sure.
He's got the best first step of anybody that I've seen consistently. Again, because I can't speak on Dotson last year for KU was great. I know among players who I've covered at like a beat, the only guy I've seen is quick, and you may hopefully appreciate this reference, Davion Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's how quick Miguel is with the ball in his hands. I have not seen anybody yet who's been able to stay in front of him. But he just, Ryan, I think it's because we've fallen in love with the 3-ball. He kind of just wants to do that. But, to me, man, no one can stay in front of you. Go to the rim. And so I think with that's kind of maybe going to be your big 3, I think. It would be Pack, Bradford, and Miguel, and it just – Ryan is going to come down to now what K-State boosters and the really heavy hitters, whether they're willing to see that kind of future with Bruce Weber as a head coach, because if not, I think Pack won't be part of that group. I don't know as much about Miguel and Bradford, but I think if Bruce goes, you're sending Pack on his way too. So it's going to be a fascinating couple of months here covering this program. That's for sure, Ryan.
Ryan Black, man, I appreciate you taking time with me. I just wish you would talk a little bit more, man. You were so quiet. You're so quiet on here.
No, you're going to be shocked that I've never been told that in my life. So that's the first.
I got you, man. Well, I do appreciate you coming on here and appreciate it again, man.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no problem, Ryan. Thanks so much. I'm happy to come on again if you need me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again sometime for sure. Yeah. That was Ryan Black, of course, Manhattan Mercury. Go check them out and everything they do. If you haven't looked at the article, be sure to go check it out. It's up over on his Twitter. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at 10 of 12 Podcast. I'd appreciate that very much. You can stay up to date with everything going on around the league. But for that, I'm Ryan Gilbert. Thank you so much for spending time listening to this episode of the 10 of 12 Podcast.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.